They thought she was just another woman with a dream. They were wrong. The massive hangar echoed with the screech of folding chairs and the low murmur of cocky male voices. Bright overhead lights gleamed off the polished silver of an F-47 Thunderbolt, the military's most advanced fighter jet. This was where reputations were forged or crushed. This was where the elite learned to fly like gods. And into that sacred space walked a woman in a plain white blouse and faded jeans. No flight jacket, no patches. Just a calm focus in her eyes, and a small silver pin glinting beneath her Collara-tarnished pair of fighter pilot wings. That woman's name? Elena Cross. She didn't speak. She didn't smile. She walked to the front table, placed her neatly filled training application on the instructor's desk, and waited. Colonel Harvey Radek didn't even look up. He sipped his black coffee, turned the page of her flight log, then finally glanced at her like someone glancing at a fly on their windshield. "Name?" he asked, voice flat. "Elena Cross. I have over 500 flight hours logged. I'm here for the F-47 evaluation track." That made him laugh. Not a quiet laugh. A full-bodied scoff that bounced off the hangar walls and drew the attention of the other male trainees standing nearby. "You're serious?" Radek barked. "The F-47 is the most complex aircraft in our fleet. It's not a drone. It's not a joyride. And it's certainly not a kitchen appliance." The trainees snickered. One of them, a thick-armed guy with mirrored shades still on indoors, raised his phone and started filming. "Maybe stick to flying the blender, sweetheart," another quipped. Elena stood her ground. Radek picked up her application. Didn't even read it. He crumpled it with one hand and tossed it in the trash. Then, with exaggerated carelessness, he tipped his mug toward her and spilled hot coffee across her chest. "Oops, reflexes matter in the cockpit," he said. "Looks like yours are a little slow." The liquid soaked through her blouse, but Elena didn't flinch, not even a blink. One of the other instructors whistled. "Cold coffee, but a hot mess," he muttered, laughing. "Security," Radek said, without taking his eyes off Elena. "Escort this civilian out of my hangar and make sure she understands." He leaned in, his voice colder than the steel bolts on the Thunderbolt behind him. "Women like you don't belong in the sky." Two guards approached. Elena nodded once. As they took her by the arms and walked her toward the exit, she brushed her fingers against the inside of her jacket, touching the small metal wings pinned there. They had once belonged to her grandfather. She didn't cry. She smiled, just a little, just enough for Colonel Radek to notice and furrow his brow. That smile said more than words ever could. Because they had just humiliated the wrong woman. Elena Cross wasn't someone who gave up. Not in basic, not in Afghanistan, and not now. At 32, she lived in a modest apartment across from the San Diego Naval Air Station. Every morning, she'd watch jets take off, vapor trails streaking through the blue sky, while she sipped cheap coffee and dreamed not of escape but of altitude. She held a mechanical engineering degree from MIT and had served in the US Air Force as a systems developer. In fact, she had helped write the original adaptive algorithm for the F-47's flight control system. But nobody in that hangar knew that. Why? Because she'd applied under her full name, Elena Margaret Crossweiss, and been denied both times. On the third try, she submitted her credentials as E.M. Cross, letting her flight hours and expertise do the talking. And it worked. Until her gender walked through the door. She wasn't new to being underestimated. After the Air Force, she'd taken a civilian job designing flight architecture at Aerodynamics Corp. The paycheck was good. The recognition wasn't. Men called her Hon, Kid, or worse while quoting her own reports back to her. So she saved. For 3 years. Skipping vacations, skipping luxuries, skipping sleep, just to afford the $85,000 tuition for the Peterson Advanced Flight Academy, the only civilian program certified for F-47 pilot training. She knew her odds were slim. She just didn't know they'd throw her out before she ever touched a simulator. And yet, that night, she wasn't bitter. She wasn't broken. She was calculating. Back in her apartment, she laid out every rejection letter, every training manual, every schematic she had ever contributed to. She placed her grandfather's wings in the center, her late father's Air Force dog tags beside them. Then she reopened the Peterson Academy acceptance notice. It didn't say conditional. It didn't say pending male anatomy. It said accepted. Elena Cross wasn't going anywhere. Tomorrow, she'd be back. And this time, they'd have to throw her out in front of the FAA. She didn't argue. She didn't shout. She simply returned. And this time she brought the rules with her. The next morning, Elena Cross walked through the gates of Peterson Academy as if nothing had happened. She wore the same white blouse stained with yesterday's coffee but cleaned and pressed. The security guards stiffened when they saw her, but she calmly handed over a copy of the acceptance letter with the official FAA seal and the Academy director's digital signature. "I have a legal right to attend," she said flatly, "unless you'd like to explain to the Federal Oversight Board why you violated Title IX protocol." The guards hesitated, then silently stepped aside. Inside the hangar, the same trainees who laughed at her yesterday paused when she walked past them. She didn't glance in their direction. She didn't need to. Colonel Raddick wasn't there that morning, but another instructor, Captain James Reeve, raised an eyebrow when she stepped into the classroom. "Didn't you get tossed out yesterday?" he asked. "I was accepted," she replied, handing over her ID and FAA medical clearance. He stared at it for a long moment, then handed her a binder labeled Ground School, Week 1. She took her seat in the back. And just like that, she was back in the game. The tests came fast. Not the written ones, those were easy. Elena scored in the top percentile, finishing in half the time of her peers. No, the real tests came in small humiliations. On her desk the next morning, someone had placed a whisk, a wooden spoon, and a pink post-it note reading, "You forgot your tools." Another day, her name tag was replaced with Mrs. Coffee. During the second simulator session, she noticed her settings had been quietly adjusted. Everyone else got fair weather flight conditions. Elena, high crosswinds, system failures, emergency radio blackouts. But she didn't complain. She flew flawlessly. Her performance didn't go unnoticed. At first, it was just a few glances, quiet looks exchanged between instructors as they reviewed her simulator results. A nod of surprise from a fellow student as she calmly navigated a mock systems failure most couldn't diagnose. Then came the moment that changed everything. It was a solo night simulator. The assignment: emergency descent during a full avionics blackout. One trainee crashed into virtual terrain, another failed to stabilize cabin pressure. Elena? She restored backup power manually, leveled altitude by reading airflow patterns on the window condensation, and landed the simulation with 2 seconds to spare. The control room went silent. Someone whispered, "Who is she?" Captain Reeve began to watch her more closely. He noticed the way she held the controls precise, delicate, confident. He saw how she instinctively adjusted the throttle before the simulator's pressure alert sounded. One day, he caught her standing outside the hangar before dawn, watching the real F-47S take off in the orange morning light. "You're here early," he said. "I wanted to see how they move in real sky," she replied. "You've flown something like it before?" Elena turned her head slightly. "I designed half its software interface." Reeve laughed, assuming she was joking. She didn't laugh back. Meanwhile, the other trainees didn't know what to do with her. They couldn't intimidate her, couldn't break her focus. And when Brad Fostercocky, well-connected, and clearly threatened mocked her during a group simulation exercise, she calmly corrected his throttle timing in front of the entire room. His ego bruised, he muttered, "She's probably memorized all the scenarios." Elena didn't look up. "Some of us don't need to guess." Later, she overheard him whispering in the hallway, "She's too cold, not built for real pressure. If something goes wrong in that cockpit, she'll fold." But Elena wasn't there to win their approval. She was there to fly. Still, the Academy wasn't done testing her. Midway through the program, the administrators discovered a $5,000 discrepancy in her tuition account. "I've paid every invoice," she told the finance office. "Must be a processing error," they said with a shrug, "but unless it's resolved by Friday, you'll be suspended." She took out a high-interest emergency loan. Again, no complaint. Just quiet resolve. And then came the psychological fitness exam. Every trainee took it, but only Elena was asked invasive questions. "Are you prepared for the toll this will take on your reproductive system?" the Academy's physician asked bluntly. She blinked once. "Are you asking the male cadets about their testicles?" He didn't respond. The final straw was a blog post. Anonymous sources, subtle language. Affirmative action diluting elite flight training. The article didn't name her, but it showed a blurred photo, her face, her posture, her unmistakable silhouette. In the comments, "This is why women don't belong in the cockpit. She'll crash and cry sexism. Back to the kitchen, honey." That night, she almost deleted her application. Almost. Instead, She reread the mission log from her grandfather's last combat sortien impossible landing under fire. He'd written, "Courage isn't loud, it's consistent." Elena closed the logbook and got back to work. It wasn't just a woman flying that plane, it was the woman who helped build it. The skies above San Diego were spotless clear, blue, endless, the perfect stage. 3 names had made the final cut for the live flight test on the F-47 Thunderbolt: Brad Foster, Michael Ruiz, and Kevin Langston. All men, all loud, all mediocre. Eleanor Cross had outscored them on every written test, outmaneuvered them in the simulator, but she didn't make the list. Because she wasn't one of the boys. That morning, she stood apart on the tarmac in a plain windbreaker, clipboard in hand, watching the prep crews perform final checks on the sleek aircraft. Captain Reeve passed by and muttered, "Sorry, Cross, you deserve that seat." Elena didn't reply. She was already thinking 5 steps ahead. Brad Foster swaggered toward the cockpit like he owned the air. Cameras were rolling. Executives from the aircraft manufacturer stood nearby, sipping lattes, murmuring technical jargon they barely understood. "This is going to be epic," Brad said to the crowd. "Time to show 'em what this bird can really do." Elena's ears perked up. Those were dangerous words. She moved quietly to the edge of the observation tent, where she could overhear Colonel Raddick and a chief engineer talking low behind a console. "There's still instability in the fly-by-wire system," the engineer said. "Above 32,000 feet during high-angle vector thrust it can trigger a control loop failure." Raddick frowned. "The test route doesn't require that altitude." Brad said he's going to showboat. He's not sticking to the plan. The engineer hesitated. "We scrub the flight?" "No," Raddick said, jaw tight. "It would raise questions. Just hope he behaves." Eleanor stepped forward. "You can't send him up without a warning," she said firmly. Raddick turned, startled. "You're not cleared to be here?" "I'm not here as a trainee," Elena replied. "I'm here as the woman who wrote the original adaptive stabilizer algorithm for the F-47. And that loop failure? I flagged it 3 years ago." "Silence." The engineer blinked. "Wait, you're E.M. Cross? From the Air Force dev team?" She nodded, pulling out her credentials and clearance. "And right now, your golden boy is about to trigger a failure that could kill him in front of cameras and FAA officials." Raddick's face went pale. "We can't cancel," he said. "Senator Foster's son." "Then let me go up after him," Elena cut in. "Demonstrate the flaw. Show the fix. Quietly." The room stood frozen. Then, reluctantly, Raddick nodded. "You go up last, as a tech observer, but this doesn't change your status." "I'm not here for status," she replied. "I'm here to save lives." Brad took off like a showman low passes, flashy rolls, defying the test route almost immediately. "Look at that control," one exec beamed. Elena, monitoring telemetry, frowned. "He's climbing too fast. 29,000, 30,000, 32,000. Then jerk." The F-47 shuddered violently on the video feed. The stabilizer fought the fly-by-wire system. The aircraft pitched hard left, spiraled, then rolled. On the radio, static, then panic. "Control, I've lost its system. Failure can't stabilize." No hesitation. Elena grabbed the headset. "Brad, this is Cross. Switch to manual override. Reduce thrust to 40%. Apply left, rudder ignore the onboard correction." "What?" "Trust me. Override. Thrust 40. Left rudder. Now." Silence. Then, manual engaged. 40%. Left rudder. The aircraft wobbled, then steadied. Raddick exhaled loudly. Brad limped the aircraft back to the runway, landing crooked but alive. Paramedics rushed in. The crowd stared in stunned silence. Then Raddick turned to Elena, visibly shaken. "Get in the second jet." She suited up in silence. No hype, no cameras, just her and the machine she knew better than anyone else. This wasn't revenge. This was redemption. As the engines roared to life, Elena touched the silver wings beneath her flight suit. "For you, Grandpa," she whispered. Thunderbolt 2, cleared for standard route. The tower called. Elena responded. "Understood. Beginning demonstration of stabilizer protocol." "What the hell is she doing?" Raddick barked. Too late. She climbed. Higher, higher. 32,000 feet. Then she triggered the floor deliberately. The F-47 wobbled, shuddered. And she corrected it. Perfectly. Not just stabilizing, but enhancing performance. She pulled into a tight climb, rolled through a maneuver no pilot had dared attempt in this aircraft. The crowd below gasped. A minute later, she landed smoother than silk. No bounce, no pitch, like a ghost touching the earth. When she stepped down from the cockpit, no one spoke. Then the manufacturer's chief engineer walked up slowly. "That was the cleanest high-altitude vector control we've ever seen. How the hell did you do that?" "I built the solution years ago," Elena said calmly. "It was shelved, because someone didn't like the name on the proposal." "And that name was?" "Elena Margaret Cross," she replied. Every head turned. Reporters, executives, even the trainees. And for the first time since day one, they saw her. Really saw her. She didn't win with noise, she won with proof. Elena Cross didn't walk back into the hangar like a hero. She walked like herself, quiet, steady, eyes forward. But the world around her had changed. Colonel Radek stood frozen in front of the press pack, microphones thrust toward his mouth, sweat building under his collar. "She just saved your star student and exposed a major system flaw. Where? You going to address that?" one reporter barked. Radek cleared his throat. "Today's events revealed unacceptable oversights in our evaluation process. Miss Cross's performance was the most technically flawless in our academy's history." He didn't apologize, but he didn't need to. The silence of the room said it all. Back at the academy, the manufacturer's executives huddled with their PR team. Plans were already in motion. Elena's algorithm would be implemented immediately into all future F-47s. Her name, once buried in footnotes, would be printed on technical documentation as lead systems architect. And they weren't done. "We want to offer you a dual position," the COO said. "Test pilot and lead engineer on our next-generation flight platform." Elena raised an eyebrow. "Why me?" The COO smiled. "Because after today, we'd be idiots not to." At the hastily rearranged graduation ceremony, Brad Foster, bandaged, limping, voice cracked, stepped up to the podium. "I wouldn't be alive if not for Elena Cross," he said, swallowing hard. "She talked me down when the jet failed after everything I said and did. She still saved me." He paused, looked directly at her. "That's the kind of pilot I want to be." The entire class stood. Applause broke out, not polite, but thunderous. It wasn't just for her flying. It was for her character. Then came the moment Elena never expected. Colonel Radek approached, an old velvet case in his hands. "These were confiscated your first day," he said softly. "They belong to your grandfather, I believe." He opened the case. Inside were the same silver wings, polished, glowing. "You've earned them, twice over." He pinned them to her uniform in front of everyone. This time, no one laughed. No one dared. But Elena wasn't finished. When offered the chance to have several of the most aggressive trainees expelled for harassment, she shook her head. "No," she said simply. "Let them graduate." Radek blinked. "You sure? After all, they need to carry what happened into their careers," she said. "Let them remember who they tried to bury and who saved them. It'll make them better pilots, maybe even better men." In the weeks that followed, her story went viral. Aviation forums flooded with breakdowns of her flight. News anchors dubbed her the Ghost in the Thunderbolt. Hashtags trended nationwide. Number, "Wings have no gender." Number, "Fly like Elena." Number, "Skill over stereotype." Number, "Quiet power." Airlines began re-evaluating their training pipelines. Female applicants surged. Peterson Academy renamed its new scholarship the Margaret Cross Memorial Grant, honoring both Elena and her grandfather. 6 months later, Elena stood at the front of a new classroom weekend flight theory, open to girls aged 12 to 18. Behind her, the roar of jet engines. Above her, 4 F-47s soared in formation, all piloted by women. Each of them once told, "You don't belong in the sky." Now they flew higher than anyone had imagined. A teenager approached her after class, wide-eyed. "Miss Cross, do you think I could ever fly one of those?" Elena smiled. "The sky doesn't care about your gender," she said softly. "It only cares if you're ready." She unpinned her wings just for a moment and let the girl hold them. "You will be." Later that evening, alone in the hangar, Elena walked past the F-47 one last time, her name now engraved near the cockpit, test pilot, E.M. Cross. She ran her fingers over the cool metal, not as a symbol of revenge, but as proof that excellence speaks louder than prejudice. And in the background, echoing through the hangar, the quiet hum of a generation rising behind her. True strength isn't shown by pushing others down. It's revealed when you rise above and reach back to help the next person climb. Would you have been that forgiving? Or would you have clipped their wings like they tried to clip yours?